You're faking your entire financial reality today, and it is costing you your actual future. You use heavy metal credit cards to feel an undeniable sense of power and authority, genuinely believing that expensive synthetic status proves your human value to the world. But the global credit system is shifting violently right now, and the massive corporate loophole that allowed the middle class to cheaply finance this fake rich lifestyle is closing permanently. Artificial intelligence algorithms are currently mapping your exact ego-driven spending habits to aggressively automate your debt collection. If you ignore this clinical reality today, you will remain permanently paralyzed in the lower middle class, working until the day you die to pay off the interest on your own vanity. We must ruthlessly expose the dark, biological defense mechanism that forces you to pretend you are wealthy. Closing this video guarantees your absolute financial ruin and ensures you remain a profitable, obedient slave to your own arrogance. Stay here, face the painful truth about your ego, and learn the ultimate protocol to build invisible, untouchable power. Delusion of synthetic power. Society sold you a highly profitable, beautifully packaged lie, and your fragile ego eagerly bought it at full price. You have been deeply conditioned to believe that acquiring expensive, depreciating luxury items is the ultimate proof of human success. You finance luxury vehicles, designer clothing, and premium experiences solely to impress broke strangers who literally do not care about your financial well-being. Those strangers are entirely consumed by their own deep insecurities, desperately trying to project their own fake illusions of success. You are essentially funding a massive, incredibly expensive movie set where your life looks incredibly rich from the outside, but your actual bank account is secretly bleeding cash every single day. This is the clinical delusion of synthetic power. True, absolute sovereign power is completely silent, entirely invisible, and mathematically unshakable. Fake power is loud, flashy, heavily financed, and requires constant external validation to survive. When you walk into an expensive restaurant and swipe your premium credit card, you feel a temporary surge of absolute authority. You feel like a ruling king for exactly 5 minutes, demanding respect from the retail workers serving you. But the commercial bank issuing that piece of plastic is charging you massive compound interest for decades just to experience that fleeting emotion. You are not a king operating an empire. You are a highly profitable, completely obedient consumer volunteering to be financially harvested. This massive psychological blind spot compounds against you daily. Social media algorithms actively hide this exact truth to keep you consuming. Ignore this and become completely financially obsolete tomorrow. Examine your toxic need for validation right now immediately. My plastic feels like real authority. Let us clinically examine your primitive human neurobiology to understand exactly why you are so easily manipulated. Your brain originally evolved in small, ancient human tribes consisting of roughly 150 people. In that brutal, primitive environment, your perceived social status within the tribe literally dictated your physical survival. If you were perceived as low status, you did not get access to vital food resources, you were denied warm shelter in the winter, and you were left to die. Therefore, your biological brain is absolutely terrified of looking inferior to the pack, reacting to modern social rejection with the exact same panic it once reserved for physical death. Modern commercial banks and massive corporate marketing firms successfully weaponized this primitive, biological survival instinct. They engineered shiny plastic and heavy metal cards to act as modern status signals, perfectly hacking your neurochemistry. When you hold a premium gold card, your brain releases a massive, intoxicating spike of cheap dopamine, tricking your nervous system into believing you are the dominant leader of the tribe. You are essentially demanding respect from society using borrowed corporate money, which is an incredibly pathetic, fake financial performance. You are playing dress-up with banker capital, and Wall Street executives are secretly laughing at your massive, fragile ego. They gladly handed you a cheap plastic toy to hold, and in exchange, you willingly traded away your family's generational equity. That plastic card absolutely does not grant you real authority in the free market. It simply grants you official permission to borrow incredibly expensive money, acting as a highly engineered, invisible corporate leash that you mistakenly wear like a royal crown. You want the cashier to hear the loud metallic clink of your card on the counter so they know you are successful, completely ignoring the terrifying mathematical reality that you just paid 20% interest for a fleeting glance of fake respect. Pay extreme attention right now immediately to this. The mathematical cost of your arrogance compounds daily. This exact mechanism is draining your equity today. You must calculate your true biological financial fear. How your ego mathematically destroys wealth. Your massive pride is actively and aggressively making you incredibly poor. Your ego mathematically guarantees your permanent middle-class poverty, serving as your absolute biggest financial liability today. Because you are absolutely terrified of looking average or poor to your peers, Your ego forces you to make catastrophic mathematical decisions on a daily basis. You aggressively buy a massive residential house to look incredibly successful to your family, committing to paying over $1 million in useless bank interest over 30 years. You eagerly lease a brand new luxury vehicle that loses 20% of its financial value the exact second you drive it off the dealership lot. You are physically burning your future generational wealth every single day simply to soothe your deep, unresolved insecurities. A truly financially secure person absolutely never engages in this toxic behavior. The actual elite, the silent millionaires quietly operating the global economy, completely separate their self-worth from their physical possessions. They happily drive reliable, 10-year-old cars without an ounce of shame, and they live in modest, efficient homes while rapidly acquiring massive equity in the background. They gladly embrace the temporary discomfort of looking completely average, happily absorbing the brutal judgment of broke people, because they understand that massive, automated daily cash flow is the only metric that actually matters. You absolutely refuse to cut your expensive daily living costs or move to a much cheaper apartment because you think your broke friends will judge your downgrade. What you fail to realize is that your broke friends are also suffocating under massive debt, completely terrified of your brutal judgment. You are all constantly lying to each other, participating in a highly destructive, collective financial hallucination. But mathematical compound interest absolutely does not care about your fragile human feelings. If you consistently spend more capital than you actually earn just to look good, your future self will live in absolute, crushing poverty, cursing your weak, pathetic need for external validation. The trap of consumer credit. We must clinically expose the dark, terrifying trap of modern consumer credit. Credit cards are no longer just financial tools. They function as primitive biological defense mechanisms used to artificially numb the deep pain of your actual reality. Your clinical reality is that you are completely broke, deeply unfulfilled, and you absolutely hate your toxic, demanding corporate job. You actively swipe the premium card on the weekend to purchase temporary respect and synthetic status, using consumer debt as a highly addictive financial narcotic. This creates a terrifying, inescapable, infinite biological feedback loop. You work incredibly hard to pay for the temporary relief, but the massive monthly interest payments demand that you keep working even harder just to survive. You have essentially become a biological, breathing battery for the global banking system, continuously providing them with your life force through the exploitation of your massive ego. They desperately need you to stay deeply emotionally unregulated, feeling empty and inadequate every single morning, because a truly fulfilled human being does not buy useless plastic junk to feel important. You voluntarily walk into the dark corporate slaughterhouse, proudly smiling while they drain your financial blood, eagerly showing off your high credit limits like prestigious military badges. A high credit limit is not a measure of your wealth. It is a strict, mathematical measurement of exactly how much heavy biological pain you can endure before you break. Global banks calculate your breaking point with absolute precision, aggressively pushing you to the exact edge of ruin, keeping you barely alive just to extract more monthly interest. This is the perfect, highly profitable corporate business model, engineered to completely bypass your logical prefrontal cortex and directly exploit your primal survival instincts. We must expose the system's darkest secret today. The financial elite weaponize this exact behavior daily. Adopt this specific rule today or stay broke. Weaponize your daily actions right now without hesitation. How banks actively exploit your pride. Wall Street actively and ruthlessly weaponizes your massive, blind human arrogance. They employ thousands of advanced behavioral psychologists who deeply study your primitive social insecurities, perfectly mapping your brain's exact chemical reward system. They know you are utterly, completely desperate for status, so they offer you instant synthetic power through easy debt. You eagerly swipe your credit card for fake importance, and they instantly charge you massive compound interest, using your hard-earned capital to fund their own massive institutional leverage. You gladly pay commercial banks a high premium fee directly to soothe your fragile insecurities. They take your massive monthly interest payments and use that exact money to buy the massive apartment buildings you currently rent, and to acquire massive ownership stakes in the corporate companies you obediently serve. Your intense, blind arrogance directly funds their massive generational empires. The global financial system absolutely requires your constant, desperate social insecurity to function properly. They heavily profit from your lack of daily discipline, specifically designing their marketing algorithms to trigger your deep anxiety by showing you beautiful people living perfect digital lives. They explicitly promise that buying their premium product will bring you happiness and authority, but the happiness never arrives. You only receive a massive, crushing credit card bill instead, trapping you in a vicious cycle until bankruptcy. The financial elite do not fall for this pathetic psychological trick. They absolutely do not care about your shiny new car or your expensive designer clothes. They only care about aggressively acquiring massive global markets. They view you strictly as highly predictable, obedient corporate livestock, a highly profitable line item on their massive balance sheets. You must instantly stop volunteering for this massive psychological exploitation and completely starve the beast of your vanity, a framework to completely kill your ego. You must aggressively destroy your massive, delusional ego today and violently embrace the brutal, cold reality of your financial situation. Admit to yourself instantly that you are currently completely broke and confess your massive, destructive financial sins in the mirror. You must cut the heavy, suffocating chains of cheap synthetic status permanently by taking radical, dictatorial ownership of your current financial disaster. Sell the incredibly expensive luxury car you absolutely cannot afford today and buy a highly reliable, cheap vehicle with cash. Stop buying expensive luxury clothes to impress completely broke people you actively, deeply despise. This transformation requires immense, terrifying psychological strength to execute flawlessly. It will deeply and painfully hurt your fragile pride initially, and your incredibly broke friends will completely laugh at your choices. Let them laugh loudly while they slowly drown in compounding debt, because their harsh, mocking laughter means absolutely nothing to mathematics. You must fiercely, aggressively live far below your corporate means, violently deploying your saved capital into cash-flowing digital assets, broad index funds, and commercial real estate. Starve your extremely fragile ego and fiercely feed your investment portfolio. Focus entirely on acquiring massive financial leverage and absolute total ownership, becoming the silent, incredibly ruthless architect of your own life. Do not let massive corporations dictate your daily spending habits or exploit your need for validation. True power absolutely does not require external validation from strangers. True power is securely owning assets that generate daily cash while you sleep. The global financial elite actively suppress this specific psychological truth because they desperately need you to remain a lazy, compliant consumer swiping a plastic card. Subscribe right now to quickly join the elite sovereign minority and master the 1% money mindset today. Stop blindly playing the rigged game they designed perfectly to destroy you. Master your mind entirely before the system destroys your future. Build your massive fortress of absolute sovereign financial power today. See you in the next elite, high-level financial protocol.